everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Kat. I'm a wife, a homeschool mom, and an avid reader. It is it's toward the end of January, and I have technically 4 more books on my TBR. I think I can get 2 more done before the end of the month, and some of that we're just going to have to see. The next book that I'm going to read is Lisa Jewell's Before I Met You. This one is a dual timeline. And we have Betty, one of our main characters, who has lived taking care of her grandmother. And then when her grandmother passes away, Betty discovers that Grandma had a different life before she returned home. We have the 1920s. Arlette is starting her life in the post-war, and just is drawn to the hedonistic world of the bright young people. But things are going to happen that send her back home and never want to leave again. This one I have on audiobook, so I'm going to listen to that while I try to reset my house and disinfect what I can, since I was real sick over this past weekend. So, I'm going to start, and I will check in when I get about a third of the way through. I'll talk to you soon. So I am 2/3 of the way through Before I Met You. I believe that's what it's called. I've gone blank. My phone has died. I meant to update at a quarter of the way I was through, and it just didn't happen. So here I am, 2/3 of the way. I struggled with this one a little bit in the very beginning because the beginning part is very character driven, and it kind of bounces around a little bit as far as timeline goes. And I think had I had the physical book as well, I would have been a lot better for it than I am right now. But overall, I'm having a great time with this book now that I'm over halfway through. Everything before the halfway point, I could put the book down, walk away, and not think of it. Not because it wasn't interesting, but because there was nothing really pulling me back to it. Now we're starting to have all the pieces fall into place, and I am enjoying it a lot more. So now I just have to wait for my phone to charge up a little bit. I'm at 2%. Because I'm listening to the audiobook on my phone and it's straining my battery. So I'm going to let it get to about 5% and then I'm going to finish. But really enjoying it. The characters are very interesting. You have Betty, who lives, who moves to Soho when she is in her 20s. I think she's 24. And it's 1995. And then on the other side, you have her grandmother, Arlette. it's either Arnett or Arlette. And her story is taking place in the 1920s. And they're in Soho, and she's kind of learning the ins and outs, or both of them are learning the ins and outs of life out of their sheltered hometown on Guernsey Island. So a lot of fun, and a lot of things that, as myself looking at it, I'm catching some of these red flags that you would think they would have, but then again, they're so sheltered, you almost go, well, maybe they wouldn't have. It's very interesting to read, though, and to kind of put yourself in their shoes and not let personal experiences taint the story. So, lots of fun, really enjoying it. I'm going to get back into it, and I will check in at the end. So, I finished Before I Met You. Before I Met You? I'm 90% sure that's the title of it. I keep forgetting the title because it overlaps with another book, or reminds me of another book that I've read. Yeah, Before I Met You, by Jojo Moyes. And this turned out being an okay book. I'm probably gonna give it 4 stars, maybe even 3.5. I didn't hate it. It's very character driven, or it's mostly character driven, and there are a few moments when it's plot driven, and that's mainly from like the halfway mark to just over 3. It's like 1/2, and then the next, or I don't even know what I'm saying at this point. It starts out very character driven, has a section of plot driven, and then switches back to character driven, probably for the last 1/8 of the book, and that's mostly wrap up, so I was okay with it. I was invested in the characters at that point, and so kind of wanted to know more, or how the story was going to end. I will say and I'm having to readjust my thinking on this one, because part of me looks at this and was like, I see the cover and I think romance. This whole story screamed romance to me through a lot of it. But the dual timeline makes it historical fiction. And the romance is a large part of the story, but it's just listed as historical fiction. And when you get to the end, it makes sense. Like, you understand kind of why they said it as historical fiction, not romance. And that's because it's not... It felt like it left me hanging, is really what it was. So, I have finished that one. 3.5, 4 stars. I'm gonna kind of marinate over that a little bit before I fully decide. But that is that one. That does leave me, or that takes care of the In Case You Missed It book club that I've been doing, or that I've joined this year. It was to read a book, this time released in 2013? 2012. And I'm sorry, this one's not JoJo Moyes. This one is Lisa Jewell, who many of us know for her thrillers. So, and this one was books published in 2012 for January, 2013 is for February. So I'm gonna just kind of marinate over Before I Met You by Lisa Jewell, and see where that kind of takes me as far as final rating. Everyone in my house, except for me currently, has the stomach bug. I had fever and super sore throat last weekend, and now my daughter and husband have the stomach bug, and I'm really hoping I'm not getting that, but I am feeling kind of fuzzy right now. So, that's kind of where I'm at there. But that leads me to my next book. I have to look and see if I can find this one. So I'm going to look, and this one will also be a World War I book. So I'm going to do a little research, see where I can borrow this book from in digital format, and then I will check in a few minutes. I'm a third of the way through The Girl You Left Behind by JoJo Moyes. That is the one that I did end up starting. This one is following this one's dual timelines. We have in one, it's World War I, 1914 to 1918-ish. During the German occupation of a small town in France outside of Paris. And we have, it's an artist and his wife. The artist is off with the troops, and his wife runs a hotel that has been taken over by the Germans. The whole first third of this book is following those events. Then in part 2, we're going to switch gears, and we're looking at a curator who has found the painting, or found a painting that this artist did of his wife. And so by the time we get there, we know as the reader, we know all about this painting. And I'm assuming that the second part is going to be the main character trying to figure out what the importance of the painting was. The thing I'm worried about is that this is going to feel like two different books. Normally when I read dual timelines that I really like, it bounces back and forth between the two timelines. This one, all of part 1 is 1914, 1915, and right around this time. And then the second part is all a different, is present day, the different timeline. And in many books that I've read where it has a big shift like this, I lose interest. So I'm going to give this a shot, and hopefully Jojo Moyes' writing will keep me going through this. But I'm going to have to take a break because I've got to get to work. So I am going to check in later. Hello. So I am now just under 2/3 of the way through The Girl You Left Behind. I was a little concerned about the switch in point of view, the way it was, and the way it's kind of set up is you have the first third is Sophia, or Sophie. The second third is Liz, in more present day. And Liz is the owner of The Girl You Left Behind painting in the present day timeline. And during this, it's the time frame where families of World War II specifically survivors have gone through, and they are, sorry, the cat's bumping my head. They are trying to get back their art and their other valuable belongings that the Germans came through and took. Well, in World War II, all of this was pretty well documented. Not so much in World War I. And so here we have this, and we have some families coming kind of like out of the woodworks. And they get their artwork back, and we see several examples of people who just immediately get the artwork and then put it in an auction house to make a buck. And when Liz gets notice for The Girl You Left Behind, she is trying to figure out how to keep the painting. She doesn't have money to spend on it, but she really wants the painting. It's a painting her husband had bought for her for their as a wedding gift, and so it's very sentimental to her. And the family didn't even know about this painting until they happened upon it in an article on the house her husband had built. So there's some ins and outs there. But then the last third of this book is building up to, we're now starting to get some back and forth as Liz is researching this family. We're starting to get some back and forth to find out what happened to Sophie after she was arrested. So I'm going to get back to it, and I will check in later. So I just finished. The Girl You Left Behind is such a sweet story. There's a lot of mystery that's still left when you finish it. So if you don't like somewhat ambiguous endings, this may not be the one for you. But at the same time, so much of that time frame, you know, right after World War I and World War II, so much happened that no one knows what happened to people afterward. So it's kind of an interesting way that they do it. But yeah, it was phenomenal. I don't normally give historical fiction as high of a rating as I'm giving this one. I'm going to give this one 4.5 stars. I had an amazing time with this. Even the parts where I got a little worried that I wasn't going to enjoy it as much, like with the point of view change at part 2. You know, part 1's all Sophie, and then part 2 starts out as all Liv. And to be a third of the way through the book and have that change sometimes can take me out of the book and ruin my enjoyment. But this one did not. Jojo Moyes did a great job with this one, and I definitely had a good time with it. But I'm gonna end this vlog here because it is actually February 2nd and I have no more time to read a January pick. So my last 2 books will be moved over to February. If you guys like this, please let me know in the comments. Hit like, subscribe. I'll see you guys later. Bye.